In its first written report to the City Council on the police brutality protests that occurred in June 2020, Huntsville Mayor Tommy Battle's office outlined 5 action points that called for changes in working with large-scale event organizers while also again defending the release of tear gas at those protests. The 11-page report was submitted to the City Council on Wednesday. The report has not been released to the public. AL.com obtained a copy on Thursday. Councilwoman Frances Akridge asked for the report with the intent of getting an administration response to recommendations included in the review of the June 1 and June 3, 2020 protests by the volunteer Huntsville Police Citizens Advisory Council. The administration's response signaled plans to act on 2 of those recommendations while continuing to value best available training for officers and department leaders as an overarching plan for improvements. The first of those actions concerns working more closely with event organizers to make sure events do not stray from what is planned, which occurred on both protests reviewed by HPCAC. The second involves a clearer working relationship with other law enforcement agencies at large-scale events such as those protests. The use of tear gas has been a flashpoint issue in the aftermath of the protests. Irritants were released to disperse crowds on both June 1 and June 3. The HPCAC report, in its recommendation on the use of irritants, said police need extensive training in scenarios that may involve the release of tear gas. The Huntsville administration, including Battle, has previously defended the use of tear gas at the protests and repeated that position in its report to the City Council. City Councilman Bill Kling, working with a citizens group on police reform, has said tear gas should not have been released. Use of irritants, as noted by the HPCAC, is a widely used technique, the administration report to the City Council said. It proved effective in accomplishing the intent and is why the events were concluded with so few injuries and arrests. HPD did not and does not employ these types of tools lightly. It is an area of their operations that requires constant training and vigilant focus on proper employment. Now that all the recordings of the events have been returned to HPD from HPCAC's council, the chain of command continues its review of all aspects of each officer's performance. In April, Police Chief Mark McMurray said no officers had been disciplined for their actions at the protests. In responding to the HPCAC report, City Administrator John Hamilton said one officer used unauthorized non-lethal projectiles at a protest, but that officer is no longer a member of HPD. The HPCAC also recommended that Huntsville Police work to create a memorandum of understanding with the Madison County Sheriff's Office and Madison Police for a single operating plan in multi-agency events such as the protests.